Tonight, the argument presented to us by our government about the reason we're in Syria has come into question with a report about a bloody attack that may have killed 1,600 civilians. 1,600 civilians. Two independent agencies, Air Wars and Amnesty International, are now confirming the nature of an attack led by the U.S. coalition. And this is not pretty. Now, the reason the report seems highly credible is due to the fact that they interviewed as many as 400 witnesses who came forward and were willing to be interviewed and described what is starting to look like a massacre. This happened back in 2017, never properly reported by the West. In fact, the Pentagon has continued to this day to downplay the damage from their attack, saying that maybe somewhere between 160 and 200 people may have been killed. This report arrives as new questions are being raised now about the infamous White Helmet Brigade in Syria that have been billed as heroic and neutral rescue workers. And the question, of course, begs, are they? Here to separate fact from fiction is our crack correspondent, Michele Greenstein, who's been working on this story for us. What are you finding out? We've got two stories here, really. The incident, which is really jaw-dropping, and the fact that we're now learning some things about this the White Helmet group, right?
Right. So the big picture, I think, is that while we love to say this is a humanitarian intervention, that the U.S. is involved because it wants to protect civilians, the real goal is, of course, to overthrow the government of Syria. And in doing so, they will partner with outfits like the White Helmets with terrorist ties and also let civilians die along the way. And it's actually notable that Amnesty, of all organizations, is even coming forward to say this because in the past they've gone along with regime change propaganda.
Yeah, and 400 witnesses is a lot of people.
Exactly, and they launched a huge investigation. So they have a stake to bear here. The fiction when it comes to the White Helmets is that these are impartial rescue workers, that they are heroes who just removed children from rubble. This fiction is seen in the Netflix documentary that won them an Oscar. This is a group heralded by the State Department and is a huge source for Western corporate media reports about Syria. In fact, they were one of the first sources to blame the Syrian government for the chemical attacks. But guess what? At least 40 former White Helmets members actually admit to staging chemical attacks in Syria. Now, there have been questions about the White Helmets before, their links to terrorist organizations like al-Nusra and al-Qaeda, the allegations of them doctoring footage, using children as props, and being involved in the summary executions of civilians. There's, of course, the allegations that they were funded by a UK military officer, so not just founded by the West, but also continues to be funded by the West, where the U.S. Agency for International Development has given them at least $32 million. But today, a group called the Foundation for the Study of Democracy confirmed some of these suspicions in one of their press conferences just this morning. They interviewed over 40 former White Helmets employees, as well as the residents from the areas that the White Helmets used to operate. Some of these employees said that they saw the White Helmets stage attacks with their very own eyes. So these are not volunteers. These are not rescue workers, right? These are employees with monthly pay, and they also received aid. And a lot of the time that included food. So a lot of these members say that they only joined because it was the only way for them to avoid starvation for their families. And a lot of former employees also say that those who did work for free, those who were volunteers, left after they were forced to take part in some of these staged incidents like shootings. So this is not a group of volunteers, right? In fact, one victim said that he was thrown in jail for refusing to work with the White Helmets. The commanders would often threaten to kill those who refused to execute these tasks. And the one employee actually I think is really interesting. He went on a mission to rescue some civilians, including his father, and he was threatened when he came back by his commander with physical punishment for going without orders.
The most important question in all of this to me, or to anybody looking at this from the outside, would be impartiality.
Right.
Because if they are impartial, they can make mistakes. But what you seem to be saying in your report is that that impartiality argument is not holding
right,
water.
And all you have to do is look at their funding. Not only is it over $30 million from the U.S. government, we also have money from the UK Foreign Office and other entities like the government of Qatar, who would love to see the Syrian government fall. Today, RT actually asked the director for the Foundation for the Study of Democracy what he think will happen, because now all this information is out there. What does that mean for the White Helmets? So let's take a listen.
Okay.
You know, I think what will happen is what usually happens. The first step is when Western countries and the Western media try to ignore this information, but we probably have already passed that step. Now, we found that the representatives of the Western countries try by one method or another to resist this information and make statements about how they don't consider the White Helmets to be an organization connected to terrorists. And it's not true. And what is interesting is that they don't present any arguments. They, as a rule, use formulas that no, there are no doubts that this is a humanitarian organization that is not connected with terrorists.
Humanitarian organization or organization with ties to the West who's basically trying to get rid of the Assad regime?
I mean, the best mask that you could put on like a military outfit is that of humanitarian aid. That's something that no one wants to argue against, right? What are you, anti-humanitarianism? So it's a very interesting strategy.
It's a good report. Thank you so much, Michele.
You.
Well done. Good digging. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.